When we talk about wool, we hear quite many different properties like anti-static, anti-wrinkle, anti-odor, thermoregulating, insulating, etc. And to understand how a material can have all those properties, we have to make a deep dive and look at the fiber. These are the surface structures on different fibers, some natural fibers and also polyester, synthetic polyester fiber. And if we look at the polyester fiber, it's very straight and even with a flat surface. And if we look on the natural fibers, they are more irregular in the surface and also the texture of it. The wool fiber has this flaky structure, and it's also built up with a protein called keratin. It's naturally hydrophobic, so it doesn't like water. It handles water, but in a different way compared to synthetic material like polyester. So we will look at a few different materials and see how it handles water. We have a polyester material, we have a thin wool base layer, and we have a bit thicker woven wool shirt. Starting with the polyester, I add some water to it. What happens on the polyester, since it's hydrophilic, the water spreads out really fast, and that's because of the capillary effect. Capillary effect works because we have these flat surface fibers with a lot of tiny hollow spaces in between, which is perfect for like spreading out the water over a bigger area. And of course from that it can then evaporate and dry really quick. So that's a good property with polyester. It dries up extremely fast. And then if we compare with the wool base layer, we can see that the drops stays on top a bit longer and then start spread out. And that's because of the hydrophilic property of the wool fiber together with the flaky structure. Because of the flaky structure, the water is not transported out along the fibers as quick as on the polyester garment, which also has a few benefits in certain conditions. And then on this last one, which is a more tightly woven wool, and if I pour some water on it, we will see that the drops will stay even longer and more, and that's because of the hydrophobic properties of the wool. And imagine we were wearing this and walking around, the water would fall off. Of course, it's not a waterproof garment, but you will stay dry longer if you have a light summer rain or spring rain. So polyester is hydrophilic naturally, but we can enhance the polyester because we use it in shell garments like this Keb Eco Shell jacket. It's also made out of polyester, and this is a shell garment, and obviously we don't want it to soak up water, so we can treat the polyester fabric with DWR impregnation to make it hydrophobic, similar to the inherited property of wool, and the drops falls off. And if we move even further inside the fiber, wool can store up to 30% of its own weight in water, and it's stored inside the fiber as liquid. So on the surface of the fiber it feels dry. So the wool fiber can store water as liquid, but water as liquid can't enter through the cell membrane. So moist air can move through the cell membrane and then make a phase transition from gas to liquid and be stored inside the wool fiber. When we have a phase transition like that, it releases energy. Then if we add energy with you as a heat source, the liquid will then vaporize again and move out through the cell membrane and disappear with the wind. Maybe the simplest and best way to explain the phase transition of water is, of course, boiling water. We put the pot on a stove and we add energy, and after a while it will start boil, and it moves from being liquid to being a vapor or gas. Same with putting water into the freezer. We actually take away energy from it, and after a while it will freeze up and be ice. And this is a really good property when using a wool garment, for example, as a mid-layer under a shell garment. Problem with the shell garment can be that the shell itself, the membrane itself, has a limit to how much it can breathe. So when it starts to feel really warm and not so comfortable, typically it's because the humidity level inside the garment is too high. But if we put a layer of wool or 2 layers of wool underneath, the wool will store the liquid or the moist until it can be released and move and be transported out through the shell layer. So typically it kind of works as a, you can say, thermoregulating, but also maybe as a buffer, having a lot of water inside and releasing water out through the shell garment. Because some humidity is always trapped inside the wool fiber, it's a good conductor for electricity. So wool garments are typically anti-static naturally. Wool is also fire resistant. It's partly because of the water, that it can trap some water inside the fiber, but mainly because of the material itself, the protein that builds up the fiber. This protein ignites at around 600 degrees, and it more chars, it doesn't create flames or anything. And we can compare that to cotton that ignites around 250 degrees. Another useful property is anti-wrinkle properties. Maybe not so important in the outdoor industry, but I think that's the reason why wool is a very popular material for making suits. And the reason why it doesn't create wrinkle is because of the molecule chains that builds up the wool fiber. Those molecule chains are a bit spiral shaped, that makes them become elastic, and that's the reason why the finished material is almost wrinkle-free. We also hear the word anti-odor when we talk about wool. And the reason why a garment can start smell after a while is bacteria. And bacteria they are growing very fast on an even surface together with water and oxygen. But if you look at the wool fiber and the wool fabric, we know it's built up with this flaky, uneven structured fibers. So we don't have the flat surface, and we know that the wool stores water inside, away from the oxygen. We create an environment that is not suitable for bacteria to grow. A wool garment can smell. For example, if you sit close to a fireplace, you have the fumes, it smells fireplace. But that smell is really easy to get rid of if you just hang it out, maybe on your balcony, or if you don't have a balcony, you can hang it inside your shower to have this moist air going through the fibers and clean them. So you can easily get rid of other smells from the wool garment. Zooming out a little bit from the fiber and looking at wool as a raw material that we can create a lot of different type of fabrics from. Maybe during the 19th century we have focused a lot on the synthetic materials because of price and really possible to scale up and make huge quantities of, and forgotten about the wool as a really good outdoor material. So now it's time to reclaim the wool as a good material it is. Thanks for watching, and if you have any questions around wool, the Fjallraven wool or our wool products, please put your question down below and we will get back to you as soon as we can. See you out in nature.